Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Scandinavian Films webinar series. I'm Wendy Mitchell. I'm a journalist and film festival consultant and a lover of Nordic films. So I'm thrilled to be your host again today. Some of you, I hope, are here just because of the amazing title of this event, Fresh Flesh. And this is when I have to give a hat tip to Jakob Berg at the Norwegian Film Institute for coming up with that title. This is a really collaborative effort, even though it looks like I'm hosting everything. All the institutes collaborated so well to organize these webinars and come up with the topics and the perfect speakers, and in this case, the perfect title. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. It's great to see so many audience members in here, and I'm recognizing some names that have been here the previous 3 days as well. Thank you for joining us every day. Today we're meeting 6 exciting voices in Nordic genre filmmaking. They're going to tell us a little bit about their approach to their work, their upcoming projects. I think, you know, if there's buyers on here, you might be interested to hear what they're up to. Some of these films I think will travel very well too. Just a reminder that the chat is closed, but the Q&A button is open. So if you have a question for any of the speakers at any time, put it in the Q&A box. I'll keep an eye on that, and if we have time, we'll answer some questions. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get to hear these 6 filmmaking voices. Today we're welcoming Hanna Bergholm, who is a writer-director of Hatching from Finland. And if you've been paying attention to the Cannes Marché this week, this was the first big deal announced this week at Cannes, was that IFC Midnight had taken North American rights to Hatching. So congrats, Hanna. We look forward to talking to you. We have Emma Broström, who is the writer of Knocking from Sweden. We have Kjersti Helen Rasmussen, who is the writer-director of The Nightmare from Norway. Coming in from Greenland, we have Marc Rosbach, who is director of Among Us in the Land of Our Shadows. From Denmark, we have Sissel Dalgaard Thomsen, who is the writer of Breeder. And from Iceland, we have Marteinn Thorsson, who is the writer-director of many films you've probably seen, but he's got a new cool genre-y film coming up that he'll shoot later this year called Recurrence. So I'm going to talk to each of them in turn to hear a little bit more about their work, and then we'll hopefully have time for some questions for all of them at the end. So without further ado, let's talk to Hanna, please. So Hanna, if you can unmute yourself. There we are. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. First of all, huge congrats. First big deal of Cannes. Amazing.
Yes, thank you. It's I'm also overwhelmed. I'm so excited about this. It's great.
Yes. And is the film in post now, or is it completely finished, or you're still doing some of touches?
Yeah, it's in post, and I'm actually at an Airbnb apartment with this wonderful poster here in Lillehammer, doing the sound work and music here in Norway, and we are doing some VFX as well.
Okay. You usually live in Helsinki, I guess.
Yes, I live in Helsinki. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, some people might not know anything about Hatching. Can you tell us a little what it is about and why it's a story that you wanted to tell?
Yes, it's a story of a 12-year-old girl, Tinja, who is a gymnast, and Tinja really wants to do everything to please her demanding mother. And she finds an egg of a bird and takes the egg and starts hatching it inside her bed. And the egg grows, and out of the egg hatches a monster creature that is half a bird and half a little girl. And this Tinja girl starts feeding the creature with her own vomit, as mother birds would do. And the creature starts turning and changing, and finally it ends up looking exactly like the girl's doppelganger and starts acting out all the bad feelings the girl hides inside her.
Okay.
So the film is very much about this girl trying to hide all her own flaws and her sorrow and her aggression so that her mother would love her. And she's terrified and afraid of losing control of all her feelings, meaning here of the creature and her feelings running away from her and what might happen then. So the story actually was very close to me, because when I was a child, I had closets full of imaginary monsters, and I knew them so well that they became my friends. So when in 2014, a screenwriter Ilja Rautsi contacted me and said that he has an idea that a boy hatches an evil doppelganger monster out of an egg, and that's all he knows, but am I interested? And I said that, sure, I'm interested, but let's change the character into a girl. And we decided to develop the story together. So it's really about wanting to be accepted totally as what you are. And of course, myself, I'm kind of person, I want to keep everything under my control. So this theme of being afraid of losing control is very close to me as well. And in our film, there is the character mother who wants to keep the whole family under her control. And she has a popular blog where she shows the perfect happy family videos to the whole world. So that is also something, I think it's very much today's world of all of us trying to show our life in a perfect way to everybody in social media.
Yeah, so it's sort of about image, and I think I read some description that even mentioned body horror. Do you agree that it has a touch of that?
Yeah, it definitely does. Because there is this ugly, disgusting, slimy creature, and how the creature evolves, and it's very much a body horror. You can also see it as a growing up story of this girl and reaching puberty and something slimy getting out from inside her, and this mother being terrified that the girl changes into something unknown and disgusting.
Yeah. You know, obviously most people watching this won't have seen the trailer or anything, but what would you say is the visual style? You've used the word slimy a few times, so I'm picturing that. Is it sort of bloody and gross? And
actually quite contrary. It's very beautiful film, because I wanted to show the world of the mother, the world that mother has created, this kind of perfect surface of this family. So it happens in summertime. The sun is always shining and there's light summer nights. So in this family, there are no shadows everywhere. There are no secrets. And there's kind of rose wallpapers in every room. There's kind of too many roses everywhere, and all the colors of the decoration and everybody's clothes are matching light pastel colors. So it's very pretty and beautiful film, but in the shadow of the only shadow in the house, in the shadow of the wardrobe of this girl, there is this slimy, disgusting creature. But actually, this ugly, disgusting creature is the closest relation the girl has, and the most real connection the girl has, and the most warm connection.
Okay, sounds fascinating. I can't wait to see more. So I think I read that the film will premiere in 2021.
Yes, yeah, in 21 it will premiere in
you don't have to tell us where.
Festival. Yeah.
Okay. That's probably off the record. And Wild Bunch is selling it. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I should have mentioned at the start, because somebody's already asked a question, are the sales rights available for all these films? And people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Hatching is sold by Wild Bunch, and then Knocking is sold by Bankside. I think The Nightmare doesn't have a sales company attached yet, but we'll ask Kjersti in a minute. With Marc, Among Us in the Land of Our Shadows, I think he has the rights to the film through his own company, but he's working on a sequel, so there might be rights available for that. With Breeder, that's Level K selling it, and Recurrence, I believe, is Yellow Affair, but correct me if I'm wrong when we go through everybody, but just so if there are any sales companies out there listening, hoping to pick up these specific projects, maybe you can work with the next films. Great. So thank you, Hanna, and good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck with finishing the film.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll come back to you at the end.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go to Emma next, please. So Emma, you are the writer of Knocking, and this is another sort of female-centric thriller. Tell us a bit more about the film and what you wanted to explore as a writer.
Yes, it's a film about a woman, Molly, who is just leaving a psych ward due to a mental breakdown and moving into a new apartment. And she had a rough year. I'm not going to tell you what
Don't ruin, not too many spoilers. Yeah.
And she's all by herself in this house and trying to get herself together, and she starts to hear knockings in the ceiling, and everyone around her thinks she's crazy, like they shouldn't let her out of the mental ward. And yeah, she gets more and more agitated to get to know these knockings, or is it just in her head?
So it's kind of like people are sort of gaslighting her in a way, telling her she's crazy.
Absolutely.
And then she's doubting her own sanity, I guess.
Because she's been to psych ward, and she has a doctor she's talking to, and so she, of course, she's questioning herself, am I just crazy, or but I hear these knockings, and she thinks the knockings is asking for help, like it's a Morse code in the ceiling. So it gets more and more heat up.
And you're working, the director of the film is Frida Kempf, who's an amazing talent as well. How did you meet Frida, and how did you start working together?
We met through, I did another movie called Flocking a couple of years ago, and the producer for that movie got us together for a different project we were working on before. So we have known each other for a couple of years, and then she found this. The film is loosely based on short story about of a Swedish novelist called Johan Theorin, and she found that and was like, yes, we have to do this, because it's about mental health and gaslighting, and to be, who in these days do you believe? If you had mental issues, then of course you're crazy. That's what we want to discuss in this movie.
And your film has already been shot. It's in post.
Yeah, it's in post. It's been delayed due to the corona, but I hope it's coming out in the spring. I'm not sure. It's Frida is making the sound and the music, and it's a collaboration with Denmark. So
great. And you know, with Frida, again, we have, most people watching this won't have seen anything of the film. I mean, what does it look like, and what were you happy to see that Frida could do with your words and to visuals?
Frida used to do documentaries before she switched to live action, and she has a very, very visual language, and the movie is pretty much, you come very close to the main characters. Beautiful, haunting picture of this woman. So it's a very visual thriller. It's a very beautiful visual thriller.
Great. And I know Bankside Films is selling this, and they're talking to people this week at the Marché. So if that sounds up your alley, please go talk to Bankside about Knocking. And Emma, we'll come back to you when we do the group chat later. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kjersti is up next. So Kjersti, can you tell us more about The Nightmare? And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you haven't shot it yet. You're still preparing it. No. Okay. So tell us what The Nightmare is and when you're going to scare us.
The Nightmare is a story that follows a young couple, Mona and Robbie, and they move into an old apartment together. And she immediately starts having trouble sleeping. And when the newborn baby next door dies, her dreams turn into nightmares. And she goes to a doctor, an expert in sleep disorders, and he discovers and he learns her how to lucid dream, like when you can wake up inside your own dream. And she discovers that a nightmare demon has taken control of her dreams. And this demon is seducing her over and over again. And then she realizes that she is pregnant and fears that the demon is looking for a way into our world. And if this demon is born, well, all our nightmares will become real and the world will be a very dangerous place.
Oh, I'm scared already. It sounds a little overtones of Rosemary's Baby. Was that any influence or?
I'm very, very influenced by the 70s films. But this is like old mythology meets modern science. So the style is also the old meeting the new. I mean, the apartment they move into is really old and they have to renovate it themselves. So most of the film takes place in this apartment, and she's doing renovations and gradually discovering the old world as she's spending a lot of time alone in the apartment.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, sorry, I think my internet's coming in and out, and maybe yours is too, but we're going to keep talking because we heard most of that. Yeah, it might be an issue on my end. When do you hope to shoot the film? Obviously, are things delayed because of the virus?
No, we're hoping to shoot it this year, later, like November, December, or maybe early next year. We are applying for the production grant now. It's been through the development phases at the Norwegian Film Institute.
Right.
So,
and you don't have a sales company yet, is that right? Okay, so sellers. I see some sellers in the attendees. Pay attention.
We're going to the Frontiers co-production market in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that going online this year, Frontiers? Yeah.
That is first time.
Okay. And you know, when I hear the word demon, I think it's, you know, horror. Is this like a bloody film? Is it a horror film? Do you call it a thriller? Is it suspenseful? How do you describe the tone of it?
The tone is very thriller-like, and but it is still a horror demon. But the demon takes the shape of her boyfriend, so he's very seductive. So it's going to be very aesthetically beautiful, and going in and out of dreams, and going in and out of shadows. Getting more and more gory at the end, though, building to showing the demon's true face in the end.
Okay, have you designed the demon already, the look of that?
Work, yes. We want to build on the Norwegian mythology and create a unique nightmare demon, which is interesting because when I did the research for the nightmare demon in Norwegian mythology is called the mare, which is the origin of the word nightmare, actually. Yeah. Oh. And I found that in every culture around the world, there is a nightmare demon. And it has a different name, of course, but it's described the same way. Someone pestering you in your sleep, giving you nightmares, the presence of evil in the room. Of course, today we explain this with sleep disorders. But there's still a lot we don't know about dreams, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, I'm an insomniac. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch this film, but it sounds great. Sounds amazing. I just might be a bit scared. But best of luck, and you know, pitching it at Frontiers, and we'll come back to you at the chat at the end. So thank you. I'd like to go to Marc next. And Marc's, I think, calling in from Greenland. We're delighted he could join us. And yeah, just wanting to know, I mean, Among Us in the Land of Our Shadows is one of the first genre films to ever be made in Greenland, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get the idea for it, and how, tell us a bit more about the film.
Yeah, it's the first fantasy sci-fi film here in Greenland. and it's about an orphan named Nukapi that he founds. He met a guy named Old Man, and he finds out that he's an Angekok, a wizard from Greenland. Then he finds out that there is all kinds of alternative dimensions, worlds that are among us, and then he learns about his past and also his family names. So he finds that he needs to learn about the culture, our culture, and all the different dimensions, and that's why it's called In the Land of Our Shadows. So.
And is it, you know, you've said very much it's fantasy. Is it quite dark, and is it scary at all, or it's more just fantastical?
It's more fantasy, but there are small bites of horror and also mystery.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I saw this film is maybe 2 years old or so. So you've already shown it quite a lot around the world. What's the audience responded to? Because we don't know much about these Greenlandic myths and legends in other places.
Yeah, the feedback is always positive. Also because the movie is an easy watch movie, not a heavy subject or scary, but it's also very comedic. But yeah, it's always positive when we talk to people who watched the movie. So yeah.
And is it true you're working on a sequel for it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
what will
in
the sequel
the
be like?
post-production.
Oh, okay. So you've shot it.
Yeah.
Great. And how is the sequel taking the story forward or differently?
We dive deeper into the main character's story and also his past. He has a trauma for he has a fear of the ocean water, and then we have to find out why he's afraid of it, and then we have to learn about his traumas and why that is his fear. There's also a theme. The theme of the movie will be fear. So we will learn about all the different kind of fears that the characters have each. So yeah, not only traumas, but also more personal fears. Yeah.
And when do you think the film will be finished? And are you looking for sales companies or distributors for it?
I hope I'm in the post-production right now, so I hope it will be finished this year. We're planning to have the premiere on December.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And you're sort of handling the rights for it yourself right now, or do you have a sales company?
I have a film company,
yeah.
Furos Image, and yeah, I own all the rights to the movie. So I'm also alone on the post-production.
Well, keep at it.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I love the sort of spirit of this company you've set up. That's, yeah, you're going for it, making stuff happen in Greenland. So amazing. So we'll come back to you in the discussion at the end. And now I'll go to Sissel, who can tell us more about Breeder. There she is. Hello. Yes, Breeder is a film that a lot of people are talking about already. It's in post-production, or is it almost
It's finished?
Finished.
Yes.
Were they screening it this week in the market?
Yes, they had 2 screenings,
Okay.
one on Tuesday and one on Wednesday, I think. Yes.
So this is Level K selling
Yes.
Breeder. Yeah, tell us a bit more about the film and what it was you wanted to explore as a writer.
Okay, well, the film is a non-supernatural horror film. It's about a young woman called Mia who's not happy in her marriage with Thomas because he doesn't want to have sex with her. And you know, while trying to figure out what's going on with him, you know, it hasn't always been like this. She discovers that he is involved in some not quite legal, not quite approved biohacking experiments, along with his business partner, a female scientist. But what Thomas doesn't know and what Mia doesn't know, but they find out during the film, is that women are actually being kidnapped and held captive and used in these experiments. And Mia herself is eventually also captured and has to find a way of breaking free and escaping with the other women as well. And the background of the film, or how it came to happen, is I've always been a huge horror fan of both supernatural horror and non-supernatural horror, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my favorite films. And so it was really an ambition to make a horror film that goes all in on the genre elements and is very unapologetic about that, but also brings something extra to the story. So I wanted to have a relationship story, a love story as well. And I also wanted to comment on society, you know, relevant issues today. Yeah.
And Jens Stahl is the director, we should mention. Yes. And yeah, what was it like? Why did you think he was the right person to work on your script? And what has he done with it visually?
Well, Jens and I were married at the time we started developing the project. We're not anymore, but we're still friends and we still work together. So it was very natural to ask him. I mean, I was actually the one who came and said, I really want to make this kind of film. Jens was at the time and still is very much fascinated with biohacking and very interested in that. So he brought that theme into the story. And my angle was very much the female point of view. I wanted to explore themes like consent and female agency, and you know, to look at those themes from different perspectives. Like, we have one storyline that's about a woman who wants something and is saying yes and is not being heard, and we have another storyline that's about women who does not want something and they're saying no and they're not being heard. You know, so like looking at these themes from different angles in different storylines in the film was my ambition. Yeah.
I mean, do you consider it a feminist film?
Well, you know, it's a film about women being held down and captured and abused, and they work together to break free and to fight their oppressors, and they succeed in doing so. You can watch the film without being interested in feminism. I mean, it's also just a very entertaining, very intense horror film, but to me, yes, it's definitely very much a feminist film.
Yeah. By the way, somebody's already saying sort of big props, big up for the reference to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But what's, for people who haven't seen the trailer or anything, what's the look of the film, and how does the visual style sort of aid the story you were wanting to tell?
Well, we wanted, I mean, I'm the writer, so, you know, that's not quite my area of expertise, but this is actually something that Jens and I talked about from the beginning. And, you know, I wanted the film to have, even though it's a very realistic film set in a realistic world, but to give it kind of like a fairy tale feel. And the way we did that was that the first part of the film takes place in, you know, a Scandinavian, very chic, very, you know, architecturally elegant environment. And then once the horror elements are introduced to the story, the look becomes very gritty and very dark and very dirty. So that was like a contrast that we talked about from the beginning that we really wanted. And I mean, I think that really worked well, you know, in the final film.
And it's finished, so do you have any idea when it might come out in Denmark or anywhere else?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, actually.
Okay, don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get me in trouble.
No.
Yeah, I don't want Tina Clent, you know, raging at me from Level K.
So, I should have checked beforehand.
No, I didn't know I was going to ask you, but everybody keep an eye out for when Breeder is going to be released.
It is on its way.
Okay, yes, it's done. There's a great trailer out, I think, already. So
thank you.
Thank you, Sissel. We'll come back to you at the end.
Thank you.
So we're going to move along to Marteinn in Iceland. And, you know, we have some debut filmmakers on here, but that's not Marteinn. I think this is going to be his 5th feature film, Recurrence. But this, I think, is going to be your most genre story. So tell us a little bit. This is a film you plan to shoot later this year, and I know you're already prepping it, so thank you for taking time to join us. Yeah, can you tell us just a bit more about the story and why this is a story you want to tell?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, and congratulations, Hanna, on your grand success. Well, it's a story that is based on a novel by Óttar Norfjörð, who's the head writer on Valhalla Murders that you might have seen. And he came to me with a story in early 2012. And we started working on a script, which is deviated quite a bit from the novel that it's based on. It's usually, you know, what happens. And it's about a young woman, Una, whose infant son disappears from his cradle. And after a lengthy search, nothing happens. She decides to commit suicide, and but fails. And on the hospital bed or in hospital, she's visited by a creature, Raven. Again, like there's a theme here, like a bird baby mutation. And she starts living her previous past, hence recurrence. Yeah, and it takes her deeper and deeper into this sort of subconscious world and her past lives, and it deals with intergenerational trauma, depression, and oppression of minority groups, women included. So yeah, that's sort of what drew me to the story. It was like, I saw the story, the basic story, which is a very nice sort of setup supernatural thriller, but something that I could use as a story to examine those themes that I was talking about. So we have a nice sort of supernatural thriller plot, and then we sort of are in this world. Most of the time we're in this world that is not exactly real. Like Reykjavik isn't exactly Reykjavik, you know, like the past and the present sort of mix, you know, so there's all kinds of fun stuff. Yeah, so somebody mentioned body horror. It's not exactly that, but I like the name, Fresh Flash. It's probably a nod to Cronenberg, no? like long live the new flesh.
Yes,
The
we'll
long
have
flesh.
to ask Jakob. But it was fun. So how, have you already designed this sort of creature, and how's the film gonna look?
Yeah, we have a creature and a prototype of a creature. It looks great. I can't divulge that now. It's designed by an artist here called Argrimur Sigurðsson, wonderful artist whose artwork actually inspired me when I was writing with Óttar. And so we have that. We're working on sort of, the effects look, that like most directors say they want to do in camera. There will actually be sort of in camera, but some extra CGI, but we're working with a limited budget. So we're just trying to find out ways to reveal the creature and stuff. My cinematographer, Chris Soos, who shot my first movie, 1.0, which was a genre movie, has excellent solutions to that can look amazing, even though we have not a big budget. And our production designer, of course. I kind of wanted to shoot like in summer and shoot like the Icelandic night as day for night or night for night because it's bright and you have a very, very nice specific light. It's sort of ethereal and different and otherworldly. But we're sort of working on that visual approach, but it will be it will look great.
Yes, and will some of it, you mentioned that it's got some historical or past lives and things. Will some of it look like a period film, or how are you?
Oh yeah. But like I said, not exactly how you would see a period film, because there will be like objects that are kind of new, and so it's that sort of gradually the past kind of becomes the present. And of course, I mean, the characters that we see now are the characters in the past, and it goes as far back as like the settlement of Iceland. I have Udo Kier playing an Irish ghost whose tongue has been cut out. So, that's another minority group. But yeah, I like to create worlds that are sort of their own world. I mean, I think that's what cinema does most fabulously, is that to creating a sense of place, a world that can sort of stand out and become timeless. I'd like to create something that's sort of timeless, that we can look at in 20 years and it won't become dated.
No. And am I correct that the Yellow Affair is selling it? Is that right?
Yeah, Yellow Affair is handling that. And one thing about the story, because we're talking about folklore and stuff like that, the creature is based on a creature from Icelandic folklore. It comes from a story about when young mothers were forced, because they'd been raped by the priest or the sheriff or whoever, to carry out their newborn infants and leave them to the elements to die, and those infants would return to haunt the people involved, so they could get a proper burial and rest in peace.
There's a lot going on there. I can't wait to see all of this. I wanted to build on something you just said to open it up back to everybody else, which is, quite a few of you have mentioned folklore. And actually at the Marché this morning, I watched Mortal, that Trust Nordisk is selling, and it's very much going back to the sort of Thor and his hammer mythology. So yeah, just curious if, how much you think can be mined, if there's still a lot more folklore and mythology and sort of Nordic heritage that can be mined on film, or does it feel like a lot of that's been done? Anybody?
As for Iceland, we have a myriad of tales that can be mined and should be mined.
Got the sagas, right? There's
not just the sagas, but just like the folk tales that were at one point collected by this guy called I forget his name, but there was a guy in Iceland who collected all these stories, sort of like the Grimm's brothers in Germany, and there's so many of those that I think we should be bringing more into Icelandic cinema. But our focus, I don't know, you probably know better as being an outsider watching Icelandic movies, sort of what is the kind of typical Icelandic movie that comes out. There's a lot of sort of, the city versus country kind of thing. And then only recently we've been moving into sort of more of social realism. And then I think we can do a lot more with the genre, the fantasy, the folklore, that kind of stuff.
Oh, and just to mention another Icelandic film I'm excited about coming up is Lamb, which is also got a little bit of a supernatural element to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see that.
Creature that a farming couple find, and that film is in post now as well. New Europe is selling that. If anybody's interested in that film, sounds cool. So yeah, for the rest of you working with, folk tales and folklore, do you think there's a lot of opportunity there, or does it feel like a lot of that is done? Yeah.
Sure, I think there is, and I think many of the Nordic folklore tales haven't been told that much. So I think there's still many tales to be told, and of course in folklore tales, they have worked so that they have been told over and over again. So they really tell us about our basic fears, basic needs. So that is very interesting. And also another thing I think is very important is to tell stories in our own languages, because that is something, for example, we did hatching in Finnish language, and there's only 6 million people in the world speaking Finnish language. And many people say that no one will buy this film if you don't do it in English. But for me, I think it's very important to hear different languages, hear different stories from different cultures, old cultures, so it makes the film world rich.
That's a really good point. And I should actually thank you all for, it's hard enough to come and talk about your film, but much less do it in English, So thank you all for speaking English for the rest of us. But yeah, these are, films that have a local part to them as well. Marc, in Greenland, we know so little about the Greenlandic history and myths. I think there's a real opportunity to tell more of these stories. Does it feel like other young filmmakers are doing that in Greenland?
We do have one director named Melik Kleist, who is making movies about Krivitut, the people who have left the society and live in the wild, and they have superpowers, or not superpowers, but so we're also planning to make more movies about the stories that our elders have told. Also all the mythology. We do have a lot of upcoming projects, more projects about those. Yeah.
Great. Anyone else want to chime in? If not, we've got a question, which is from my friend Sarah Lutton, who programs for the London Film Festival. And she's saying, we've mentioned Rosemary's Baby and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Are there any sort of influential, more Nordic films that have dealt maybe with some of this mythology or Nordic genre films that have inspired you all?
Well, yes, I can say that, well, of course, Breeder is not supernatural, but examples of films that have already done what you're asking are like Troll Hunter, I think is a really good example of that, and Border is also a really good example of that. And so, I mean, we have a lot of, or we have some really good films, I think, that have already done this, you know, used the Nordic mythology. And, you know, we even had an American go to Sweden and make a film about Midsummer, you know. So I think there are a lot of potential in that culture and those stories still, yes.
And one of our audience, Stuart Wright, a screenwriter, I know, is recommending the Norwegian film Fail or Fale. That's another good one.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, Let the Right One In is also
Let the Right One In.
Yeah. Sure. Any others to mention from anybody?
Well, for me, of course, also Let the Right One In has been very important. And in Finland, we have an old film from the 50s called The White Deer, which is kind of a classic, and that is kind of horror film, where vampire story, old legend, where a woman gets a form of a white deer and starts killing men. So that is a very beautiful.
I want to see
story.
that.
Yeah, it's wonderful film.
On everybody's list now.
Yeah.
What do you all think of the words Nordic Noir? Does that annoy you when I say that? Do you feel, I mean, that's been mostly applied, I think, to some of the TV series, The Bridge. For, you know, it sort of annoyed me because it was applied to shows like Borgen, and that's a political drama, you know. Do you think there's any benefit to that kind of label and people looking out for dark stories from the Nordics, or do you think it's sort of a label past its time?
I think that anything that can draw attention to Scandinavian films, and, you know, any kind of brand that is viewed as quality, a mark of quality, I think just, yeah, sure, go for it. Call it Nordic Noir, and you know, we can do with that whatever we want. But as long as the attention is positive, yeah, I don't mind people calling it Nordic Noir.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of like it too, because it's Nordic Noir, but the Nordic countries are very peaceful, and we have a lot of bright light in the summer. So I don't mind branding it Nordic Noir. Kind of like it.
Good. Hanna, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a kind of a marketing label, and it's beneficial in many ways as a filmmaker. And also when I watch films, I don't label them myself. I don't mind labeling them, or I don't think that now I'm making a Nordic Noir film or something like that. But it's very it's a useful tool, and I think sometimes these kind of labels help because, for example, we have had very successful Nordic genre boost in Nordic countries, kind of bringing up genre films, and I think that has done good things for raising up genre films. Even though I'm not interested only genre films, I'm interested in films, but it's good, anything that helps bringing the Nordic countries up, and also to making more different kinds of film, making genre films, so making any kind of film, so that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, are any of you annoyed that we've called you fresh flesh, and maybe you feel like you're not just a genre filmmaker, you're a filmmaker? I mean, do some of you only really want to make genre films? I mean, Martin, you've made all kinds of films.
Yeah, I'm in post on the last movie that we shot in December. It's kind of a Nordic Blanc. It's a drama. It's a low key drama, but it's wonderful if you can sort of go between, you know, genres. And I think it's a great, especially for a director and a writer, to work in sort of different fields, because it all, I think that they support and help each other, because at the end of the day, you're always dealing with people, you know, human interaction, human themes and elements. You know.
Yeah, what about you, Emma, for instance? Do you think you'll write all kinds of stories?
Yeah, absolutely. I mostly written drama and thrillers, like drama thrillers, or so maybe I'm not a comedy person, so I'm not going to write a comedy, but mixed genres, absolutely. And I think it's drama in everything. So the base is drama, people connecting.
What about you, Sissel? Because this, you know, this goes quite dark, this captivity and things, but you're also exploring a drama elements of, healthcare and experiments gone wrong and things like that. I mean, are you open to writing all kinds of work?
Well, I do write all kinds of work. I mean, I love working with genre and horror, and I continue to do so. But I also work in very art house dramas. I mean, to me, I think the most important thing is theme. And, if the story is about a subject that I'm interested in, which is mainly about, gender, female, sexuality, identity. But yes, I mean, right now I have one genre project in development, or one horror-ish project in development, and 3 that are not. So I work in both areas. Yes.
Cool. And Marc, you mentioned that your film has a lot of comedy elements in it. Would you ever just write a comedy?
Yeah. Actually, my next movie will be a comedy, and also a mix of comedy and horror. I tend to write different kind of or mix the genres. Every time I write something, but I also want to work more with thematic storytelling, and yeah.
And we're here talking about films today, but I'm curious if any of you have worked on episodic projects, or you would like to do TV, or, there's some great TV shows that can be very genre as well. And is that something any of you have explored yet or want to?
Yes, actually, in TV and in TV series, there are many great things happening at the moment. There are super great TV series. So for me, it's not about that I want to only make films or only make a certain kind of films. It's about that different kind of stories need a different kind of storytelling and different kind of format. And I think it's the theme and story that drives me, and then to find the perfect way of telling that story. And also about this genre thing, what I think is fascinating is that now I think the genres are kind of mixing more and more. I think it's a kind of thing that is happening, and I think that is interesting and great.
Yeah, I agree. I love genre films, and I've always been watching and writing them. And I believe that they are becoming more and more popular among everyone. But I love the fact that you can have a really personal, strong story, but combined with something else, a bigger element that is making us more curious about the world. And of course, that also happening in television.
Yeah.
So I'm developing more projects, both for films and television.
Yeah, wonderful.
I'm a big fan of Dark, the German series. I'd love to do something like that. It's actually some elements to it, like Recurrence, but you can do a lot of fun stuff with genre series.
Yes, I was just about to mention Dark as well, actually. 3rd season coming up. It's a really, really awesome show that I also think has a very, very high artistic quality. Yeah.
Has anybody been watching anything else on lockdown that you want to recommend? Anything scary or even not scary? Any tips for people out there watching?
Well, an oldie that is not quite gotten the attention that it deserves is Penny Dreadful. which is one of my all-time favorite shows. There's a new miniseries, but I would recommend going back and watching the first series, which is like an awesome show on HBO. It's a Showtime series, but on HBO Nordic.
Watchmen. I
Okay.
loved Watchmen, the series, the HBO series. I think it's amazing and phenomenal filmmaking. What was the other one? His Dark Materials mini. Really like that. Yeah.
And I think there's a new version of The Stand coming, isn't there? Which will be very relevant to our times, I think. Not quite sure when that's coming. We've got a last minute question that's come in, and I think it's really a good one. It's from Marc Mounier asking, with public funding for genre films, sometimes do you feel like you have to sort of water down your vision to get it accepted, and then maybe you put more feathers on the bird? I don't know. Does it feel like those public institutions get genre films now and they're supporting them in the right ways?
I think they are starting to support them, and that is, I think, greatly to do this, what I mentioned, this Nordic Genre Boost, which was kind of workshop for developing genre films. And I think it hasn't been like that in previous years. I think the Nordic Film Institute had been very drama driven, which there's no harm in that. Drama films are also good, but I think, like I said, it's very important that there's variety in films, that we make different kinds of films.
Yeah.
Same
And
for
a lot of you have public funding, and correct?
I mean, it's not just the public funders, but it's also, the buyers and stuff. I mean, if you're not doing like straight, because you were talking about Nordic genre, when you sort of say that, they're looking for something that starts with a body and a cop.
Yeah.
Who has to discover the murderer, which is kind of limiting. So we need, with the success of series like Dark and, Let the Right One In, Troll Hunter, these movies, I think, the buyers and distributors should be more open to that, exploring of genre.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We'll have to wrap on time, but we have a comment and just saying that somebody has said they really enjoyed the webinar, and great to see so much talent all over the Nordics, and he's very excited to see all these films. So I think that's the perfect note to end on. I can't wait to see them, even if they're going to give me nightmares. Thank you for being our fresh flesh today and sharing your thoughts about your films. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. And thanks again for, speaking in English when you're trying to pitch the nuance of the film. I think it's really great that you did that for us. I'm sorry I mispronounced all your names. It's my habit. Thank you to everyone at Scandinavian Films for helping organize this. Thanks to the speakers and the audience. And we've got one more webinar tomorrow morning about getting your first feature off the ground. So I think that will also be interesting. Best of luck with all these films. We cannot wait to watch them. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.